What if I told you that in one tiny Russian village, a woman cannot give birth, raise a child, cook a meal, fetch water, or even use the toilet without first negotiating with a cold, so violent it can kill an exposed human being in under a minute? Here, a mother learns to dress her baby before she dresses herself, because she knows the few seconds it takes to carry that child from a warm house to a waiting car can freeze tiny lungs. Here, women hang their laundry outside and watch it turn to sheets of ice, then beat the frost out of it like dust. Here, the toilet is a wooden shack at the bottom of the garden, and reaching it at minus 60 degrees is not an inconvenience. It is a calculated risk. And here, when a woman dies, her own daughters may wait 3 days before the frozen earth will even allow them to bury her. This is a place where beauty, marriage, motherhood, and survival are all governed by a single ruthless force, the cold. A place most outsiders couldn't endure for a single night, yet where generations of women have built entire lives. And today, we are going to uncover the hidden facts and realities that create curiosity about their lives. Let's count down the realities of their lives. And trust me, the deeper we go, the harder this becomes to believe. Number 12. The morning that begins with a number. For a woman in Oymyakon, the day does not begin with coffee. It begins with a number. Before her feet touch the floor, before the children stir, she checks the temperature outside, because that single figure decides everything that follows. Whether the kids go to school, whether the car will start, whether it's safe to step outside at all, or whether today is a day to simply stay inside the wooden walls and wait the cold out. A warm winter morning here is minus 45. A bad one is minus 60. And in the deep heart of January, the village can go weeks where the temperature never once climbs above minus 50. She lights the wood stove first, because in many homes, that fire is the difference between life and death. The houses sit raised on wooden stilts, lifted clear off the ground, because if the heat of the home touched the permanently frozen earth beneath it, the ground would thaw, and the entire house would sink and crack apart. So she lives in a warm box, floating above an ocean of ice that never melts. Outside the window, the air glitters. Locals have a name for the faint crackling hiss you hear on the coldest mornings. They call it the whisper of the stars. It's the sound of your own breath freezing into tiny crystals. The instant it leaves your mouth, it's beautiful, and it is a warning, because the cold here doesn't just make life uncomfortable. It rewrites the most basic, private, human acts entirely. Starting with one almost no documentary dares to talk about. Number 11. The outdoor toilet at minus 60. There is no polite way to say this, so we'll say it plainly. In most homes in Oymyakon, there is no indoor bathroom. The reason is brutal and simple. Running water and modern plumbing cannot survive here. Unused pipes can freeze solid in as little as 5 hours. And once they freeze, they crack and burst. So instead of fighting a battle they cannot win, the village simply went without. To this day, the majority of homes rely on an outhouse, a small wooden shed standing alone at the bottom of the yard. Now picture what that means for a woman, in the black of a polar afternoon, when the sun barely rises at all and the temperature outside is minus 60. She bundles into layers of fur and wool. She crosses the frozen yard, every breath stabbing her lungs like glass. She does what she has to do in a ruthless cold so severe that exposed skin can begin to freeze in moments. And then she hurries back, because lingering is dangerous. This is not a once-in-a-lifetime ordeal. This is every single day, several times a day, for her entire life. Tourists who visit for 48 hours describe this single detail as the thing that broke them. The women here simply call it normal. They've taught their daughters how to do it quickly, how to dress for it, how to never, ever let it become an emergency. But if the toilet is hard for a grown woman, imagine the impossible math of doing all of this with a newborn baby in the house. Number 10. Keeping a baby alive in the cold. Ask any mother in Oymyakon what the hardest job in the village is, and many will tell you the same thing. Keeping a baby warm. A newborn cannot shiver effectively. It cannot tell you it's cold. It loses heat far faster than an adult, and in a place where stepping outside for 60 seconds unprotected can be lethal, a mother's entire world shrinks down to one mission: never let the heat fail. The wood stove can never fully go out. If the fire dies in the night, the temperature inside the house can plummet toward the killing cold outside within hours. So mothers and grandmothers take turns. Someone is always half awake, always listening for the fire, always feeding at another log of larchwood. In a single year, a household here can burn through more than 100 cubic meters of firewood just to stay alive. And most of that worry falls on the women keeping the home. When a baby must travel to the one clinic, to a relative's house, anywhere at all, it becomes a tiny operation. The car is started and left running long before. So the cabin is warm. The child is wrapped in layer after layer of fur and blanket until barely a face shows. And then comes the dash, from the warm house, across the deadly air, into the warm car, with not one wasted second. Mothers here learn to read the sky and the thermometer the way mothers elsewhere read a fever. They know that the cold is patient, and that it only needs one mistake. And the children who survive those first fragile winters, they grow up and they go to a school with one of the strangest rules on earth. Number 9. One shop, and the price of everything in a city. If you run out of milk, you walk to one of 100 stores. In Oymyakon, there is essentially one shop, one. That single store stocks the food and supplies for the entire village, and almost everything in it has traveled a punishing 2-day journey along the frozen road of bones to get here. And here is the rule of remote places that tourists never grasp. The further something travels, the more it costs. Fresh fruit and vegetables, the things that simply refuse to grow in permafrost, are rare, expensive luxuries. A woman planning her family's meals isn't choosing what she fancies. She's working around what survived the road and what she can afford. Even clothing tells the story. A proper pair of traditional reindeer hide boots, the kind that actually keep your feet from freezing, can cost the equivalent of around $400. Here, that's not fashion. That's survival equipment, and it's priced like it. So the women of Oymyakon have become masters of an older economy. They preserve, they stockpile. They use the entire frozen outdoors as one enormous natural freezer, storing slabs of meat and fish in sheds where the cold does the work no refrigerator ever could. Nothing is wasted. Everything is planned months ahead, because the alternative is going without. And what fills that freezer, what ends up on the family table, is a menu that would stop most visitors in their tracks. Number 8. A frozen plate. You cannot farm crops in Oymyakon. The growing season is a cruel joke, a few short weeks before the ice returns. So the diet here is built almost entirely on meat, fish, and milk. The staples are reindeer and horse meat, and freshwater fish pulled from holes cut through the river ice. The most famous dish is called stroganina. Long, thin shavings of raw fish, sliced while still frozen solid and eaten that way. Frozen, often with a little salt. To an outsider it sounds shocking. To the women who prepare it, it's a delicacy, a tradition, and a brilliant survival food all at once. The cold itself does the preserving, no cooking required. In the deep winter, even milk is sold and stored as a solid block of ice. Berries gathered in the brief summer are frozen and rationed out through the dark months, one of the few sources of the vitamins that meat alone can't provide. And yes, the locals will tell you, only half joking, that a glass of strong Russian tea, their nickname for vodka, helps keep the chill out too. It's a fatty, hearty, calorie-dense diet, and it is no accident. In a climate that tries to freeze you from the inside out, the body burns fuel at a furious rate. The food here isn't about pleasure, it's about heat. So these are the women who feed families on frozen fish and horse meat, who haul firewood and guard sleeping babies. You might assume there's no room left in such a life for beauty, romance, or dreams. You would be completely wrong. Number 7. Beauty, marriage, and the lives they choose. Here is the part outsiders never expect. Behind the fur hoods and the frosted eyelashes, Oymyakon is full of young women who love fashion, who post to their phones the moment they're back inside a warm room, who fall in love and marry and dream of more. Exactly like young women anywhere. The difference is that beauty here is wrapped, quite literally, in survival. Out in that air, vanity is dangerous. Bare skin freezes. So elegance becomes something you reveal indoors, in the warmth, among family and friends, a kind of private world that the cold can't reach. The women of the Sakha region are known across Russia for striking features shaped by centuries of indigenous Yakut heritage. And they carry that with quiet pride. But the cold shapes their futures in a harder way too. This is a tight-knit, traditional, family-centered world, where grandmothers, mothers, and daughters often live close and lean on one another to survive the winters. Marriage, children, and home are woven deep into the culture, and yet, more and more young women are looking down that long frozen road and choosing to leave. They go to Yakutsk, to bigger cities, chasing university, careers, and a life that doesn't begin every morning by checking whether it's safe to breathe outside. Those who stay are making a choice their grandmothers never had to think about, to remain in the cold, on purpose. For the ones who stay and raise children, there's one more daily test waiting. And it happens at the schoolhouse door. Number 6. The school's unbelievable cold rule. Children all over the world dream of the snow day, that magical morning when school is canceled because of the weather. In Oymyakon, that dream has a number attached to it, and the number is staggering. School does not close for cold here, not at -30, not at -40, not even at -50. The children of Oymyakon are expected to bundle up and go to class, unless the temperature falls below -52 degrees Celsius. Let that settle. At a temperature where, in most of the world, the government would declare a state of emergency, the kids of this village are still walking, sledding, or riding to school. Wrapped in fur hats, thick coats, and boots made from reindeer hide, with barely a slit left for their eyes. For mothers, this rule turns every winter morning into a ritual of preparation. She dresses each child in layer upon layer. She makes sure not one patch of cheek or wrist is exposed. She watches them disappear into the frozen gloom and counts the minutes until she knows they're safe inside the heated schoolhouse, named after a local merchant who once helped travelers survive this very region. And the school is small, barely 100 or so students in recent years, a number that quietly shrinks as families leave. Those classrooms are warm and full of learning and laughter, but every parent in that village knows the truth. The cold is always waiting just on the other side of the door. It's the same cold that turns the simplest household chore of all into a daily struggle. Number 5. The battle for water. Turn on a tap. Clean water flows. For most of us, it's the most boring miracle in the world. In Oymyakon, it's a fight. Because the plumbing freezes, water doesn't simply arrive in many homes. It has to be carried, hauled, and guarded. In some households, where pipes can't be trusted, families melt blocks of ice and snow for their water, or rely on water trucked and stored in heavily insulated containers, so it doesn't turn solid before it's used. Where pipes do run, they often run above the ground with heating stations along the route just to keep the water inside from freezing on its journey. This, too, falls heavily on women. The endless cycle of making sure there is water to cook with, water to clean with, water to drink. There's a nearby thermal spring, a strange gift of the geology here, where water bubbles up just warm enough to stay liquid, even as everything around it freezes solid. The village's name, cruelly, even means water that does not freeze. In a place where nearly all the water is locked in ice, that name is either a promise or a joke. Every drop is earned, every chore that you finish in seconds. A woman here finishes in cold-numbed minutes, in clothes heavy with frost. And when she does need to leave the house and travel, that's when the cold reveals its strangest trick of all. Number 4. Cars that never sleep and the road of bones. In Oymyakon, people leave their cars running all day, all night. Engines idling in the frozen dark for hours, even days. It sounds insane until you understand the alternative. In this cold, if you switch an engine off, it may simply never start again. Axle grease turns solid. Fuel thickens. Batteries die in moments. So the village adapted. Keep the engine alive, or keep the car in a heated garage, or don't have a car at all. The local gas station runs around the clock for exactly this reason. And the only vehicles that reliably cope are the tough, Russian-built workhorses. Anything else just surrenders to the cold. For the women here, isolation is its own kind of weight. The nearest real city, Yakutsk, is a 2-day drive away, and that drive is along the Road of Bones, the haunted highway built by prison labor under Stalin, where the dead were buried into the very roadbed. It is the lifeline and the only line. In the worst of winter, the village can feel like an island floating in an ocean of ice, cut off from the rest of the world. When a woman here needs a hospital, needs supplies, needs anything beyond what that one shop can offer, that long frozen ghost line road is the only answer. And she plans her whole life around it. Yet despite all of this hardship, the people here have not just survived. They've built a culture rich enough to celebrate. Number 3. Fur, festivals, and the Lord of the Cold. It would be easy to imagine Oymyakon as a place of pure misery. It isn't. It's a place of fierce, defiant tradition. The fur the women wear is not vanity. It's the only thing that truly works, passed down and prized out of necessity. Those reindeer hide boots, the layered furs, the handmade winter gear. This is craftsmanship perfected over centuries by indigenous Yakut, and even people who learned long before any thermometer exactly how to outlast this cold. And once a year, the region throws itself a party in the teeth of winter. They celebrate the cold pole, honoring Chiskan, the Lord of the Cold, the mythical guardian of these frozen lands. There are reindeer races, dog sleds, ice fishing, ceremonies, and color blazing against the endless white. It's a festival that takes the very thing trying to kill them and turns it into a source of pride and identity. For the women, these traditions are a thread connecting them to grandmothers and great-grandmothers who stood in this same cold and refused to break. Out beyond the houses, semi-wild Yakut horses paw through the snow to find frozen grass, surviving outdoors all winter on their own, living proof that some things were simply born to endure this place. But there is one tradition no one celebrates, one that reveals more than any other just how completely the cold rules this village, in life and in death. Number 2, burying the dead in frozen ground. When someone dies in Oymyakon, the grief is the same as anywhere on earth. What happens next is not. Because the ground here isn't soil, it's permafrost. Earth frozen rock solid, year after year, to a depth far below where any shovel can reach. You cannot simply dig a grave. The ground will not allow it. So the village does something that has barely changed in generations. They build a fire directly on the spot where the grave must go. They let it burn for hours, slowly thawing just the top few centimeters of iron-hard earth. Then they rake the glowing coals aside, break apart the softened ground with axes, and dig down a few inches, no more. And then they do it all again. Another fire, more hours, another few inches, fire, thaw, dig. It can take 2, 3, sometimes more days of this exhausting, freezing labor before the hole is finally deep enough to lay a coffin to rest. The body waits, frozen, while the living fight the earth for the right to bury their own. For the women of this village, this is one of the most heartbreaking realities of all. To lose a mother, a husband, a child, and then to stand in the killing cold for days, tending fires, just to give them a grave. It is the final, undeniable proof that here, the cold governs everything. Not just how you live, but how you are allowed to die. And it raises one last haunting question about the future of this village, and the women who will decide whether it lives or dies. Number 1, the village that's slowly disappearing here, is the fact that the postcards never tell you. Oymyakon is fading. A few generations ago, This village was home to as many as 2,500 people. Today, that number has fallen to around 500, and it keeps dropping. The young are leaving year after year, chasing warmer, easier lives in the cities. And the ones leading that exodus, more and more, are young women. They're the ones with the most to gain by going, educated, ambitious, unwilling to spend a lifetime hauling firewood and racing the cold to an outdoor toilet. Many of them look at that long road of bones and they take it out, away, toward universities and careers and futures their grandmothers could never have imagined. What's left behind is an aging village, weighted toward the old, with fewer and fewer children in that little heated school, which makes the women who stay the true keepers of this place. The grandmothers feeding the fire through the night, the mothers wrapping their babies for the 60-second dash to the car, the teachers, the cooks, the fishermen's wives who choose, actively, knowingly, to remain in the coldest inhabited place on earth, holding a fragile community together against a cold that has all the time in the world. They are not trapped here. That's what outsiders get wrong. The ones who remain are choosing to, and every winter they survive is a quiet act of defiance against a place that by every law of nature should be impossible to call home. So this is the truth of Oymyakon, a truth no 30-second travel clip can ever capture. Behind the famous headline of -71 degrees are real women, living real lives, doing the most ordinary human things under the most extraordinary conditions on the planet. Making breakfast as the stars whisper, carrying water that fights to become ice in their hands, dressing children for a walk to school in cold that could kill them, guarding a baby's breath through the long dark. And when the worst comes, standing over a fire for 3 days, just to bury someone they loved. We come to places like this expecting to be amazed by the temperature. We leave amazed by the people, and most of all, by the women who turned the coldest, harshest corner of the earth into something almost no one else could ever manage to call home. That's the part the world rarely sees, not the record on the monument. The mother by the stove, awake at 3 a.m., keeping the fire alive. And that's the hidden side of Oymyakon, from its beautiful women and fascinating traditions to its remote villages, unusual foods, and everyday challenges. This is a place that proves the world is still full of surprises. But now we want to hear from you. Which fact surprised you the most? Could you imagine living here? And would you ever visit this place yourself? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next adventure into another fascinating corner of the world. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next documentary.